everyone. Welcome to Scicomm Monday. I'm your host, Nicole Wood. Today, we'd like to thank everyone for sticking around for the little extra fun that we had with the issues with the broadcast yesterday. Periscope was down for the afternoon, so we weren't able to broadcast, but we're back today on a special Scicomm Tuesday edition, I guess we'll call it. But with everything, as always, feel free, if we don't get to your questions, to tweet us afterwards. So you could tweet me either at the Scicomm Monday handle or at my personal handle of wildlifebiogal.com. And with that, I'd like to introduce today's guest, who was very kind with sticking around for extra days so we could get this in, Rebecca Heisman, and you can reach her at r_Heisman on Twitter. And so, Rebecca, thank you so much for sticking around for this extra day so we can get this in. So welcome to Scicomm Monday. It's great to have you on.
Thank you. I'm excited to finally be here after yesterday.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun of us being on Skype and me saying it's still not working. I don't know what's going on. Oh. Yeah, Rebecca got to see all the behind the scenes venting frustration that was happening with the broadcast. But that's the thing when you're on the cutting edge of technology. Sometimes things don't always work well, but that's why we have Tuesdays, so we can always make up for any Scicomm Mondays. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about your background, so that way people who like what it is that you do at least have like some sort of pattern that they can follow or a template that they can follow if they want to become a Scicomm writer.
First of all, if you like what I do, don't do what I did, because I ended up here by accident. If you know that you want to be a science writer, you should go to school for that and do internships for that. And yeah, you would be much better suited than I am then. But so my undergraduate degree was in zoology and environmental studies, and I thought at that point that I might be a wildlife biologist. And after I graduated, I had some seasonal field technician jobs doing bird stuff because I like birds. And then I ended up with an internship as an environmental educator, so taking kids out on nature hikes in the woods. And I took it partly just because it was close to home for me, but I ended up really liking it. And so I decided to go back to grad school and get a master's degree in environmental education. And I thought that would be my career. I'm going to work at a nature center or something. This will be great. And so then I finished that degree, and I took basically the first job that I was offered in environmental education because I was terrified of being unemployed, and moved to a little teeny tiny town, 180 people, cattle town in Eastern Oregon, to work for a little nonprofit there as their outdoor education person, and ended up staying there for about a year, but it wasn't really a great fit. And so I also started dating someone who lived in a city a couple hours away. So I left after a year to move in with my now husband. It worked out, thankfully, without having a job here in Walla Walla. And I'd done a little bit of writing and social media stuff kind of on the side all along, and managed to jump into that. It started when I found a part-time independent contractor thing working from home for the two ornithology journals, the Auk and the Condor, doing communications for them, and then was able to build on that. So now I am a full-time freelance Scicomm person.
Great. So you just kind of in a way fell into it.
Yeah, it just kind of happened, which is, I like it. It worked out great, but
yeah, that's kind of with me with the whole Scicomm thing. I kind of feel like I've just fallen into it. It's just something I've just naturally started liking as I kind of got into it, and it just kept steamrolling, and next thing I know, this is what I'm doing most of the time.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your work with the Auk and the Condor, because that's really interesting that you're actually working for two really well-known journals.
Yeah, so I actually found it because I was still subscribed to a Bird Jobs email listserv from years before, when I'd had some field biology positions on that and doing bird stuff. And they had posted that they wanted a part-time, work from home, freelancer, independent contractor, whatever you want to call it, to do communications for them, specifically managing their Twitter accounts. So if you follow at Auk Journal or at Condor Journal, that's actually me. I'm the human being who tweets from those. And also to write press releases about new research that was coming out. So the Twitter stuff is pretty self-explanatory. The press release stuff, she's got it up on the screen. How it works is that every month or so, I'll send the editor-in-chief of each of the two journals a list of what's going to be coming out in the next month, what papers, and they will pick which ones they want to get publicity. So it's not up to me. I just get assignments And then I read the paper and I contact the authors to get them to kind of explain it to me in their own words, to get some stuff that I can use as quotes. And I write up like a one-page press release summarizing the research in a way that's, scientifically accurate, but hopefully still accessible for people who aren't scientists. And then the goal of that, I mean, we post them on a blog so anyone can go and read them, but the goal is also to get media coverage from other outlets. So those press releases get sent out to an email list of media contacts, and they get posted on a website called Eureka Alert. That's like a science news service where science journalists troll for stories. So it's really cool. I've gotten to talk to a lot of really cool ornithologists through doing that. Meet a lot of people.
Yeah, I know that's one of the reasons I really like doing Scicomm Mondays. I get to interact with so many great scientists and Scicommers. So there's a lot of really good opportunities to be able to talk to all these amazing people by doing things like that. And just for everyone out there who's tuning in, if you have any questions, definitely feel free to send them in via the Periscope chat module. And if we don't get to your questions, like I said earlier in the broadcast, feel free to tweet us at our respective handles afterwards, or if you're watching this on replay later, also feel free to tweet us, and I'll make sure I put up those handles at the end of the broadcast for everyone. But I guess one of my things is, since you're interacting with so many scientists, and not a lot of scientists are naturally Scicommers like we are, what is some good tips that you could have for people when you're having to write those press releases that scientists can do to help you out on your end as you're trying to write those press releases?
Don't be afraid to show a little personality. And I mean, sometimes I'll email someone, hoping for something I could use as an interesting quote in a press release, and all I'll get back will be a paragraph resummarizing in fairly technical language the results of the paper. And it's so much more fun and easier. I mean, I can write a paragraph summarizing the results of the paper. I don't need you to do that. What I love is when people will send me some like fun story from their field work, or like make it really clear like what makes them personally excited about their work. So when you're talking to a publicity person or a journalist, like they want to hear your personality, they want to hear your stories. They don't just want you to give your scientific talk that you might give at a conference. That you show some personality and be a human being. Basically.
Right, so maybe my fun story about having a mute swan that was chasing after me on a kayak that is now my profile or my cover photo for my Facebook, that might be something interesting that you might want to include. Is it something along those lines then?
Yes, if you had a paper coming out in the Condor about mute swan research and I was assigned to write a press release about it, that is a story that I would want to hear. And since my press releases are only a page long, sometimes I can't always fit in all the fun stories that I would want to, but I at least love it when that's what people send me, so that I can make it a little more interesting.
Right, so it's just adds just that little bit extra flair of maybe what you wouldn't get in an actual journal article then.
Yeah, I mean, the science is important, but someone who wants just the straight science can read the article. I mean, for the press release you want to, or for a magazine article about it or whatever, you want a little more color.
Right. So just a reminder to everyone out there, if you have any questions, feel free to start sending them in. We'd like to make this as engaging as possible. So definitely send in any of your questions that you have for Rebecca about her work with science writing. So I know you also do a lot of freelance work, and one of the things that I thought was really neat that I didn't know before was that you actually write scripts for some YouTube channels out there. The biggest one that is the SciShow. So why don't you tell us about how you got involved with SciShow and what SciShow is, and just tell us all the awesomeness about it, please.
Yeah, so I got involved with it, actually. It's a slightly funny story. Some of your followers might be familiar with Derek Hennon from Twitter. He's a millipede biologist, and he's someone who I had known via Twitter for a number of years, and he knew that I was doing some freelance writing and was looking for gigs. And so he's the one who actually saw this posting where SciShow was looking for new freelance writers and sent it to me. And I thought it was kind of a long shot because they've got SciShow is a YouTube science series that's got 3 million subscribers. They're kind of a big deal. But I filled out their little form for freelancers, and lo and behold, I actually got hired to join their regular stable of freelancers. And it's a lot of fun. I am not involved at all in the video production. What I do is I just write the scripts and then send them off to the video people. And sometimes I pitch them ideas. Sometimes they assign me things. They know that my background is mostly in wildlife and life sciences, so they'll send me something like, write us a list about 6 animals that have weird sleep habits or something like that. That's not one that I've literally done, but I think someone else did that one. And yeah, so I write typically a few scripts every month for them. It's a lot of fun just because, I don't know, it's something different from anything else that I do. And yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, there's about 4 million followers right now. Is I think with the
Like that.
screen capture I
Yeah.
got from that was easy that it's that big of a viewership that
Yeah.
you're finding on there.
Yeah. And it's really funny. He's kind of a famous YouTube personality, and he's the brother of young adult writer John Green, who wrote The Fault in Our Stars and all that stuff. And I had been going way back to when I was, an undergraduate. So now it's a little bit Green says on the internet. I don't know. I geek out about it a little bit.
Oh yeah, I mean you totally have to because I mean it's really cool
Yeah.
to be able to actually see your name on something like on the credits here. I mean your name is
Yeah.
right above Hank Green's name on there. I mean it's like and if it's someone that like, you've always followed and admired about things, it's cool to actually be able to work with them or get to know them. Like I've had my moments when I've interviewed different scientists and it's like I've been following you on articles for years and to actually be able to get to hang out with you and talk to you like live on a broadcast, you do kind of geek out a
Forth is like with the editorial staff at SciShow, and he's the host. So there's some layers of personnel in between there. But SciShow did send out Christmas cards to all of their freelancers that were signed by everyone there, including signed by Hank Green. It was fun.
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's one of the neat things too. I think with science communication needs that you might not necessarily get if you're just straight lace into the science. Like I feel like it just opens you up more for these really cool opportunities that you can get. So just a reminder to everyone out there, if you could any of your questions or anything, feel free to send those in so we can keep the engagement going here. It's always a fun time if we can make this more of a ask me anything. So I guess the other thing I want to talk to you about is just your general freelance writing. Like that's what I find kind of interesting. That I really have no clue as to how that works. So can you kind of tell us what it's like to be a science freelance writer and how that whole process works with things?
Yeah. So I don't know how other people do it, but what I have found works for me is I set up email alerts for myself on a lot of journals that publish in areas that I'm interested in, so that every time a new paper comes out in, the Journal of Avian Biology or Global Change Biology or whatever, I get an email. And so I'll just sort of skim those once a day, and if anything, a bit more, a bit more, a bit more. And so if I see an article that I'm like, this is something that I would like to write about and that would be a good fit for, a publication that I've, ideally that I've written for before, so I have a bit of a relationship with them, I'll track down a copy of the paper and write up a pitch to the editor that I work with at whatever publication, kind of summarizing the study and why I think it would make an interesting article. And if I'm lucky, I will get an email back saying, write X number of words about this for us and we will pay you X number of dollars and get me your draft in a week. And so then I'll set up interviews and, talk on the phone in the study and, maybe comments as well and put together a draft and send it off. And then it gets metaphorical red pen and eventually it goes up online. I don't know. That's all there is to it.
Right. Yeah. I I guess my thing is where do I come up with ideas and things like that. It's just I think that would probably be one of the hardest things is trying to like just scour and like knowing okay what has been talked about before, like how much do you like read the magazines and stuff of where or the journals and things that you're submitting things to be able to kind of keep track of what it is that they've already published about, so that way you're not necessarily maybe wasting your time pitching them something that they just published 2 months ago.
Definitely, exactly. If I see something that I want to pitch a story about, I'll publication that I might want to write about it for to make sure they haven't already done something really similar. And I'll check, Eureka Alert, which I mentioned is that got a press release, is probably already, there's already a staff writer there who's on it. So as a freelancer, you really kind of want to seek out the things that are not already getting publicized like crazy so that you can offer something different. So yeah, I always do kind of at least try to do some due diligence and make sure that I'm pitching something that might be unique.
So we have a question coming in. Have you written on
Hey,
subjects that you're not an expert on? This
I
is from
have.
Hal Sherman. So
Okay. Hi, Hal. Um, I have definitely for when we're first starting there before I'd really settled into a niche, they would send me all sorts of things like, and even the things that are biology related, I've written some more anatomy type ones for them where I didn't really know anything about it. Like I got an assignment for them to write a show on why we have kneecaps but not elbow caps, which I had no idea. So I was reading up on it and then like trying, like even getting on Twitter, like trying to find people who were anatomy experts who were kneecap experts. And it turns out there are people who are specifically like kneecap experts who were trying to give me some answers. But yeah, definitely part of being a freelance science journalist is being able to quickly get up to speed on anything. Because I've even the stuff that I do that is wildlife related, coral reef restoration. I've written about beavers in the Arctic. I've written about how feral hogs affect salt marshes in Florida. I mean, you just need to get really comfortable teaching your space.
yeah, I know personally if there's something that I'm not an expert on, it's amazing how if it's just even slightly outside of my field of expertise, how hard to speed on that. So, and it's
Yeah,
I mean, I think a lot of people think, well, you do science, you should know about all this science. I don't know about all this science. It's like even
yeah,
within like, I work with a mute swan, an invasive species. That's like even if it's another thing about a wetland, I might not know anything about that, and it's so it's that's got to be quite a tough thing to be able to get yourself constantly up to speed on things. But then you get to be kind of know all this different stuff, so that's got to be exciting.
yeah. I read a lot of papers here. I'm sitting here at my desk. This is all scientific papers. Yeah. Always got a stack going.
Because
I don't know if people can see
that
that.
I think that's like one really good thing with people who do any sort of science communication. I do feel like you kind of get to know a little bit about everything, and so you do get to be more of that jack of all trades versus sometimes when you're just in science all yourself because you become that particular expert about that one subject and you don't necessarily do that. So,
Yeah, that's part of why I ended up not going into actual wildlife biology as a career is because I'm interested in everything and I didn't want to go to grad school for biology and have to specialize in one aspect of one animal and never get to learn about anything else ever again. It's different every day.
right. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, I think, do you feel like it kind of just energizes you a little bit more because you are getting to work on various things? So you're not necessarily getting tired of just one thing. Like, okay, I'm going to work on this one bird for the next 3 years of my life versus, hey, every day might be slightly different and I get to, have that variation that like keeps your mind going in that particular way.
And to actually make a good scientist, I'm much better at talking about other people's.
All right. Sure, we're not going crazy on time here. But yeah, so what else is it like, what kind of like, I don't know, what's the most interesting story possibly that you've done
Um,
that you really liked?
yeah, so most of what I do, I just do from home, interviewing people by phone. But last year I did get to go out into the field a couple times to do some firsthand reporting. And the first one the first thing I ever got to do that for was a feature article that I wrote for an online magazine called Biographic about Western juniper, which is a tree that's native to the inland Northwest where I live. But even though it's native, it's been greatly expanding out of its historic range in the past, century or so, and it's getting to a point where it's starting to impinge on the habitat of sage grouse. So to spend a few days traveling around Eastern Oregon, going out with BLM biologists to count sage grouse and stuff like that. I was writing about just the history of the management efforts there.
Great. Yeah, I just like what was their like, most fun thing or, what's their fieldwork fail? Do you have I guess a science writing fail that maybe just something that you thought was really going to be working out like, oh, this is going to be a great article and then it just
Um, um, well, for one, definitely could have been a science writing fail because the first draft that I sent off to my editor that I did attempt to do entirely reporting from home over the phone was not sufficient, and it definitely took some editorial handhold out of how it turned out, but there was some iffy bits in the middle. Gosh, what else? The SciShow folks a while ago asked me to do a list of like 6 great unsolved mysteries suggestions to get me started, but it was all like really technical biochemistry stuff that I didn't really understand. So I kind of did my best to like write up an outline and send it off to them, because their process is usually you write an outline first and they look at it and then you turn it into a full script. And when I sent them my outline, they definitely got back to me and were like, yeah, we're going to have someone else do this one. Never mind. So yeah, that absolutely happens.
Yeah, that always worries me. Like I'll have reporters opinion about something. I was like, I'm not the expert on that, and I don't really feel comfortable like giving you a quote on this particular thing. I could start shuffling you off to the person that you might need to like talk to, but it's just like, do you truly give that knowledge base to somebody when you yourself don't really have that knowledge, and you kind of feel like, oh, I don't know. So yeah, like what else, like, so you, when you interact with the Awk and Condor and you do a lot of social media online like that, just wanting to like Twitter that you see from like your aspect of Scicomming on your own, but also as the person that runs actual accounts for journals.
I've seen people saying to scientists who want to get on Twitter, like, even if you just create an account and like post one thing, that's better than doing nothing. And I don't really think that's true, because Twitter is pretty fast paced, and if you're not at least somewhat active, probably people aren't really going to follow you and see your stuff. So I would say, maybe make a resolution that you're going to like spend 10 minutes each day, getting on Twitter and posting a link to something that you found interesting and writing a reply to one other person, because I feel like it does take some consistent effort to like cultivate a good community before you actually start finding those opportunities. And I have found paid science writing opportunities through connections on Twitter. Like I mentioned, I ended up with my friend Derek Hennon sending the link my way, and I've never met Derek in person. He was just a Twitter friend. So Twitter is actually worth it, but it takes some effort to get there.
Right. Yeah. I can't even begin to count the number of connections that I've made on Twitter that have led to something else, because I made sure that I was actively involved on there versus just, oh, I might post every 2 weeks or only when I go to a conference or things like that. Like you do have to be, I think, a little bit more actively engaged, one, to like just be able to let people know that you're there, but then also too for you to be able to get the most out of it, because it's very easy for you to miss other things. But yeah, with rest of the Scicomm stuff, I guess, like, what tips do you have for everyone to, like, if you were like to do like your 3 big tips for being a good Scicomer, what would be your best guess or best recommendation?
These questions ahead of time so that I have good answers. So
it's so much more fun to watch you be on the spot, Rebecca.
Oh gosh, thanks. Three big tips for Scicommers. I don't know. First, I guess don't be scared to give it a try, whether you're interested in writing or making a video or whatever. Like the Scicomm community is so supportive, at least the parts of it that I tend to interact with. Like no one's going to be like, you're terrible, go away. Like that's not, don't be afraid to try something different. Like I making a couple Twitter threads of like using GIFs from the Twitter GIF library to explain a couple different scientific concepts, which was just a fun way to kill some time. So that's 2. You wanted 3. This kind of goes with the first 2, but just in general, like don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone and try something. Like don't worry if you don't think you'll be good at it. Like you never know. Just go for it. Being outside your comfort zone is a good thing.
Yeah, you were talking about GIFs, like how much, like I know when I with my person put up GIFs and things like that to kind of like explain what I'm feeling and joke around with people, like how much fun do you think people can kind of like get away with having on Twitter, the other things, like should it be just straight up science, you only talk about your science and your research, or should you allow yourself to have a little bit more fun and more engagement that way? I guess it's like the difference between like, should you do the straight up journal or should you do more the like Scicomm engaging with the public then, I guess?
Yeah, I ask myself that question every day with my own personal Twitter account, because it really is, look, people are commenting that their connections are cutting in and out.
Yeah, there
Your
might be a
eyes.
few
But
people who are having a little rough, and unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do about it on
yeah,
this
I
end.
know.
So,
Yeah, I do ask myself that question with my Twitter account because I try to use my own Twitter account, partly as like a professional self-promotion tool. But I mean, people love interacting with with other people and feeling like there's a human being on the other end. So I do sometimes post just personal stuff about whatever I'm doing in addition to links to what I'm writing and what I'm working on and other interesting articles. Like last night, I think I tweeted about that it might have been a mistake a gif of someone backing away from their computer, a gif of someone backing away from their computer in horror. So just have fun with it. It's have a personality and be a human being and to mix that in with science. So
yeah, do you find that like people are more willing to engage with you when you do kind of like show that little bit of your personality and that personal side to your life, every so often versus if you're just straight up, only talking about science or your research
I
or
think
your
so,
your
yeah. I mean, definitely with the people, with the scientists that I follow, their personality, and it makes them more their personality, and it makes them more memorable. Like if all you ever do is tweet links to, scientific papers or whatever, I'm probably not really going to register who you are. Whereas if you show some personality, it's going to be like, oh yeah, that's that person who like like makes the really good pancakes or something,
right.
whatever it is.
Yeah, I know that like say with Dr. David Steen and banter back and forth is so entertaining,
Oh
but it
God,
makes them very memorable too. And it's,
yes.
it's, and when I was working on putting together a proposal for a Scicomm symposium at the Wildlife Society, it was their back and forth that like made me remember who they are, and I invited them to be part of the symposium, and now they're going to be coming and speaking at the Wildlife Society conference this
Fun.
September. And so it really does kind of like help set you apart in a fun way. I mean, you obviously don't want to go too overboard, or you want to make sure like everything is like acceptable to our, to have a little bit of fun and showcase who you are, not just who your science is or who your writing is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, with that, it looks like we're starting to get to the point where we're about out of time. Comments for everyone in Periscope land that you can think of when it comes to Scicomm or science writing for everyone.
I'm gonna be at the AOS conference in Michigan in July, so if you're gonna be there, come say hi. I'll be at the Aachen Condor booth probably most of the week.
Right. Well, that's one of the that's one of the first places I got to hang out with you at was at NAOC at the your booth there for the Aachen Condor. So many moments were spent hanging out at that booth. So, but yeah, for everyone, I'd like to, if you have any more questions or anything that we didn't get to, or you're watching this on replay, definitely make sure you feel comfortable with tweeting us afterwards, and we'll do our best to answer all the questions on Twitter. And with that, I'd like to say a big thank you to Rebecca for not only broadcast today, since everything went wrong with the broadcast yesterday. So it was great to have you on. With that, I'm going to throw up Rebecca's Twitter handle here, score Heisman. If you want to talk to her afterwards. If you'd like to talk with me, you can reach me at Wildlife BioGal, and then also at the Scicomm Monday handle. And then a reminder for next week, we're going to be having Sarah Orlando. She's from the Ohio Sea Grant, the IAGLR 2017 conference that will be happening later this month, of which yours truly and many different Scicommers will be there for the social Great Lakes Sci next week when we talk to Sarah about the Great Lakes and all the great work that they're doing. And then with that, Monday, Tuesday edition of the broadcast, and I definitely hope that you all go out and have a great rest of your day, go explore, do some science, have some fun, and hopefully we'll see you next Monday.